Welcome back to Fantasy Football Today. Got a fun slate of games coming up for the Week 10 slate in the afternoon. Colts at Raiders, the Jeff Saturday debut. See how that goes there for Indianapolis. Thankfully, Jonathan Taylor back to help the interim coach. Cowboys at Packers should be a fun one there. If the Packers offense shows up, you know Dallas should be ready to go. And we're waiting to find out the running back situation for that team. And then you got the Cardinals at the Rams. Should be a fun one there. The 1 o'clock slate. It'll be a fun slate of games, as the Browns and Dolphins should be an interesting one there. Broncos at Titans, looking forward to see what the Broncos offense can do coming off a bye. And then the Texans at Giants, hopefully some fantasy points for the running backs, Dameon Pierce versus Saquon Barkley. But the spotlight game for us on CBS is the Jaguars and the Chiefs. And to break that down for us now here on FFT, it's our friend Tom Spencer. He's in the booth with Jim Nance and Tony Romo for the call on CBS. So Tom, let's start with the Kansas City side of things. At least one thing that we do know. Mecole Hardman is not going to play. So we're going to expect Travis Kelce, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Mahomes to be fine as fantasy options. But does anybody step up to replace what Hardman has been doing, which has been fantastic? So Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, is any of those guys going to help Patrick Mahomes and help this offense and maybe help fantasy managers as well?
Well, he's got a lot of help. As you know, Jamie, he's averaged over 400 yards his last 2 games. On pace, by the way, if he keeps this up, you know, we're having some fun here, of course, but 9 more games to go in the season. Heck, he could throw for over 6,000 yards. Wow. You never know.
Yep.
But he's got so many options. And, looking at Kansas City, is Toney going to step up today? He had, 9 catches last week. As we look at some old milestone numbers here, look how long it's been since the first quarterback, Dan Marino, to throw over 5,000 yards in 16 games. And the way we're projecting the rest of this season to go, Jamie, if Buffalo and Kansas City are vying for that number 1 seed, which of course plays into fantasy managers, they'll be playing meaningful games in week 15, week 16, week 17. So that's a good sign. But these are some numbers we throw at you looking back in time, and this is what Mahomes and company have been trying to do this year. So the question is, what do they do today? They want more balance with the run game. They only run the ball on about 35% of their snaps. So, it's still a Mahomes passing offense. But we were talking to Patrick the other day, and he says when we run the ball effectively, he does not want to throw the ball 68 times, clearly going forward in a game. That didn't lead to a whole lot of scoring for them against Tennessee. So he says when we run the ball effectively, we are nearly unstoppable. Andy Reid wants to see the same thing. So to get back to your original question, it's spread the wealth. Kelce had 17 targets. Smith-Schuster is clearly his number 2 option. Kelce's targets against Tennessee. Schuster, the clear number 2. Who steps up beyond that is the big question. I'm personally looking for Sky Moore. We've been hearing about him all year from Kansas City, and I think he's a player that's on the rise. Toney had that grade 2 hamstring injury in week 2 but playing for the New York Giants. And I think Kansas City wants to slowly get him acclimated. So it's Smith-Schuster, it's Kelce, and then, of course, it's a band of receivers, 4 of them, possibilities to step up today against the Jags.
All right, Tom, so you mentioned the run game there, and Jerick McKinnon's coming into this matchup a little bit beat up. So if you have an update for us on him, that would be great, dealing with the shoulder injury. But if McKinnon plays, he's been leading them in snaps. They've been talking about Isaiah Pacheco as a starter. That really hasn't meant much. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire will always pop up with the random touchdown after what had been a good stretch to start the season. So, as always, whenever we have a Chiefs game, what's the breakdown of Kansas City's backfield?
It's amazing to look at the statistics, Jamie. The last 100-yard rusher for Kansas City was Clyde Edwards-Helaire early last season. So, as I said earlier, it's just not statistically what they like to do. They've had 4 different people lead the team in rushing this year in games, and Mahomes has done it twice, including last week. So who are you going to fall back on? McKinnon had 68% of the snaps against Tennessee, and he comes out of the game with 3 nagging injuries. So we don't know his status as we sit here right now. But, based on the volume that he had last week, and he's not 100%, you would think that might go down. And Pacheco, we're still waiting. They've been touting him all season long. Pacheco and Sky Moore are the 2 guys that, as rookies, this team is really high on, and they're just waiting to see them really burst onto the scene. They love Pacheco's, hard-running style, 100 miles an hour, and it's just a process. Everything in Kansas City is about, getting better as the season progresses. So you just never know who's going to have the hot hand on a given week. And as we see here, when you come in with PPR rankings for running backs, Kansas City's always in that same neck of the woods. Nobody really steps up. I find it ironic. The first series of the year, we did the game in Arizona. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, his first 3 touches, he burst out for huge runs, but has simply not been able to get it going on the ground so far this season. So still a mystery here.
It's a mystery for fantasy managers, so we'll hopefully get some clarity after this game. Again, maybe if McKinnon does not play, not that we want to see that, but maybe gives an opportunity for Clyde or even Pacheco to step up and be that guy as they build toward the playoffs. Let's go to the other side of the ball with the Jaguars, and interesting offense that we've seen because Doug Peterson's kind of been all over the place with how he's trusted Trevor Lawrence, some questionable play calling. But in terms of the passing game today, I think if we follow what the game script could be, Jaguars chasing points, maybe we see some more attempts for Trevor Lawrence. What do you anticipate with the passing game for Christian Kirk? The Jones guys, Zay Jones, Marvin Jones, Evan Ingram, how are we going to see this all work against this Chiefs defense?
Well, when you study Jacksonville, and this is our first time seeing them this year, and we're excited to do so, they've led in every game. So actually, they play from ahead more often than not. Now, last week against the Raiders, big come-from-behind performance. Lawrence threw the ball as well as he's thrown it in his career as a professional. So, the question here is, which Trevor Lawrence are you going to get? He's still a young player in a new system, still learning. He's got a lot of turnovers, 6 interceptions. All the interceptions, Jamie, are in the red zone or in the last 2 minutes of the game in a 1-score game, driving. So those are not places you want to turn the football over. 5 fumbles. He's got to shore that up. But his potential is off the charts. This group here, the only guy of these 4 that he worked with last year was Marvin Jones. So again, I talk about Kansas City, the process. Christian Kirk has over 70 targets, but only 43 catches. So there's chemistry that's still developing. I'm very interested today, just from a one-on-one standpoint. Evan Ingram, we've all heard about his potential for the last few years. You're going up against Kelsey across the way, okay? So you want to put on a good show there. Kansas City's going to blitz a young, second-year quarterback a lot. So Lawrence is going to want to get the ball out of his hands. Is this a game maybe where Ingram catches a lot of, we call them wide receiver screens, get the ball out in space? He, to me, is somebody that you might want to feature today. But when you look at the Jones, Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, and Evan Ingram, they're all right in the same world in terms of targets, between 47 and 55 targets. So Lawrence is pretty much spreading the wealth equally amongst those 3 players all year.
Yep, it makes it hard to trust any of them, but Ingram being a tight end, we kind of lean toward him a little bit because of what the upside could be at that position where we're always looking for good fantasy assets, like you said. Travis Kelce on the other side, it's fun to have that guy, whether it's fantasy or reality. Ingram would certainly be a nice boost for fantasy managers if he steps up today in that game. You say it's the first time you get a chance to see the Jaguars. A lot of the national audience, aside from what he did in college in terms of Travis Etienne, hasn't really seen him do a lot for the Jaguars. But since they've traded James Robinson, the production has been fantastic. So just your expectations for Travis Etienne in this matchup against Kansas City.
They're big. 5 straight games with over 100 scrimmage yards. Had 46 touchdowns at Clemson. We knew he was going to be a star. Of course, the Liz Frank injury derailed him. One little note, his younger brother yesterday at Florida, Jamie, Trevor, had 100 yards rushing and an 85-yard touchdown. His brother, even in cold weather today, would love to step up. The one thing we got from the Jaguars, maybe not a big surprise, after the volume of touches last week for Etienne, and if you're watching that game against the Raiders, he got banged up, came out of the game, then came back in. 28 touches last week, probably a little higher than they'd like going forward. So, ideally right now, again, second year coming off injury, now the number 1 running back, maybe you're in that 18 to 20. So it's quality over quantity with Etienne, but he is an impressive young man. We met with him last week. Look at these running backs that he's up there, at the top of the list with. He is a star in the making. And the one thing, and I think you'd agree with me, that they have not done a lot of is throw the ball to him in the receiving game. Only 18 catches this year so far. Again, getting back to today's game plan, if you want to get the ball out of Trevor Lawrence's hands, screens, quick passes, get defensive backs and safeties trying to tackle Etienne one-on-one in open space, that would be a nice option to see him maybe get some touches outside of the true running back position.
We would love it, and these 2 teams are tied for first in terms of receptions allowed to running backs. So Etienne should be a factor here, and we'll see if anybody on the other side of the ball for Kansas City steps up. You would assume it's McKinnon, but if he can't go, then we'll see who helps in the passing game for Patrick Mahomes. Tom, you're the best. We appreciate your time as always. Look forward to the call on CBS with Jim, Tony, and the crew there. Again, check it out on CBS, and you can also check it out on Paramount Plus. And make sure you're checking out Inside the NFL exclusively on Paramount Plus. That's every Tuesday. JB and the guys get you covered with everything you need, all the insights, all the news, all the best information inside the NFL every Tuesday exclusively on Paramount Plus.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.